Hello, and welcome to the fourth instalment of a series looking at some important people connected with Leipzig. Yesterday we followed Clara Zetkin in her determination to seek better conditions for workers and women and her attempts to prevent Hitler taking power. We fast forward now to the end of World War II and the setting up of DDR, the communist state of East Germany. The government was anti-religious and invested huge amounts of energy and finance in repressing the population through the state security apparatus, the Stasi. We visited the notorious Stasi offices, the Runde Ecke in Leipzig, and here we saw the extent of surveillance. They monitored school children for opinions contrary to the government. They invented tiny hidden cameras for monitoring those they were suspicious of. And they had to keep opening up huge new storage areas for vast numbers of cassette tapes of bugged phone calls and files on potential dissidents. At its peak, 1 in 166 of the population were formally employed for the Stasi, and over 1 in 7 were informers paid to spy on their neighbours and relatives. Initially, these Germans would imprison dissidents, but later, under pressure to appear to allow freedom of speech, a technique called Zerstörung was used, meaning destruction or ruination. Effectively, the aim of the Stasi was to ruin dissidents' lives by secretly, covertly interfering in their lives to generate marital discord, unemployment, depression and fear. And the museum still acts as a route into counselling for those who have suffered such traumas. In 1968, the authorities made plans to redevelop the main square in Leipzig, the Augustusplatz, and produced various designs. Despite massive opposition at their consultation, they opted for an unpopular design that involved destroying the historic 13th century university church. For most Leipzigers, this monument was an important representation of their history and their story. For the communists, it represented the past before communism and other loyalties than loyalty to communism. Small groups, understandably small given the fierce repression of dissent, protested outside the University Church of St. Paul's in Augustusplatz, or Karl-Marx-Platz, as it had been renamed. The protesters were wearing emblems of ploughshares, inspired by the verses in Isaiah 2, which state, "They will beat their swords into ploughshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not lift up sword against nation, nor will they learn war anymore." This intensified the council's resolve, and on the 30th of May 1968, the church was blown up. The historic organ that Bach had played on was destroyed. The various historic tombs and artifacts were saved and are now displayed at the university. A doctoral student in physics there at the time, Harald Fritzsch, and one of his friends decided to protest and make this mindless destruction known more widely. They bought a 2.5 by 5 square metre piece of yellow cloth and painted a picture of the destroyed university church on it with the inscription, "We demand reconstruction." They smuggled the banner into the International Bach Festival prize-giving ceremony that was taking place 3 weeks after the church had been dynamited. During the award ceremony, using a remote timer mechanism, the banner unfurled. Television crews recorded this, and West German television broadcast it around the world. The regime was furious, but couldn't work out who was responsible. A few months earlier, the pair had realised that although the East German coast was heavily guarded by police, the Bulgarian coast was not. So they travelled there and escaped from there to Turkey in a folding canoe. Harald Fritzsch continued his studies in West Germany, rising to become a professor and a renowned theoretical physicist. His demand for reconstruction was eventually fulfilled, as in 2007 rebuilding began, and although not as beautiful as its predecessor, the new university church was completed in 2017. In 2022, Harald Fritzsch died, and the university church remembered his protest and published its condolences with the message, "We will always honour his memory." I wonder why the communists were so enraged by the passage from Isaiah. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not lift up sword against nation, nor will they learn war anymore. Perhaps it was the unexpected refusal of the protesters to meet violence with violence. Perhaps, contrary to their communist dogma, it was the assertion that God had not been consigned to the history books, but was still sufficient of a reality to inspire people to risk themselves in taking action against injustice. Perhaps it was the implicit statement that God was the ultimate judge and no human weapons could stand against him. Certainly a touch paper had been lit, and the smouldering resentment would come to full fruition 21 years later, emerging from another church, St. Nicholas, just beyond the other side of the square, just 200 yards away. Please listen tomorrow for the last instalment of this story.